Good morning, students. It is Tuesday, May 5th of distance learning, and we are doing our first week of only 4 days of work. So you got new packets from me this week, as always, but we're actually starting a whole new unit. To answer a question we've had multiple times, if you didn't complete your poetry test yet, that's okay, because we had Friday and Monday kind of off of school. And so I will still accept that next week. So just finish it when you have time to finish it, and please turn it in. I'd say it'd be better to do it by next Monday, but we're pretty flexible with deadlines. So the earlier the better though for me, and so then I can record that information. This is what you got for me this week. You got 3 things. Some of you got 4, I'll talk about that in a second, but you got 3 things. You got your reading guide homework, see? And it says turn into Miss Doyle. So this is the thing you're gonna turn into me, and you're gonna write your name here. Now, I prefer you also write your name on the places that I gave you to write your name, that'd be cool. But worst comes to worst, if you have your name here in very big, clear letters, it'll make my life easy. Next thing you got. It looks like this, and it has a beautiful banner that says keep at home. This is for you to keep. Do not turn this into me. I don't want it. It has your notes, it has the PowerPoint slides, and then it also has this nifty character list. Now, the character list is not included in your homework because it's supposed to be there for you for your reference. And so I'll mention, like, this is a character we can write down. So you should have this out and with you while you're reading and we're going through this stuff. Okay, and then the last thing you got was this single sheet of paper that tells you exactly what we're doing this week. So this week, these are the materials you got. This is the thing you turn back into me, and this is what we're doing this week. So today we're doing our notes. We're doing our notes over 2 days because normally, you know, we take a 45-minute class period, and I'm not going to do a 45-minute video. I did that once. It was silly. And notes tomorrow, and then we will start reading on Thursday, okay? Oh no, I didn't grab my Prince and the Pauper book. It's over there. Hold on. Thank you. This is what you should be looking for. See how it's kind of maroon, or some students say it looks kind of purple. In my video, it looks maroon for sure. This is what we'll be reading out of. Now, some of you got a 4th packet, and that's what you'll be reading out of, okay? If you have any questions about the packet that you got to read out of, you can send me an email, not a big deal, but like 90% of you are reading out of this, okay? It looks like a lot. The words are small, I get it. We are actually not going to be able to read the entire thing, so we're gonna kind of skip some parts, okay? There's the kind of the boring parts, but feel free to read the ones that we don't. We'll talk about that more later. One more thing I want to mention is that this book is organized with Roman numerals, meaning when you go to chapter 1, so you've got your table of contents here, you can see that the chapters are done in Roman numerals, and we practiced this a little bit with Julius Caesar. So like chapter 1 is a capital I, chapter 2, 2 capital I's, chapter 3, 3 capital I's. So because page numbers aren't always going to be our reference point, we're going to talk about our chapter numbers, so just so you know. All right, but today's notes day, so I'm going to switch and share my screen, and we are going to, in this notes packet right here, we are going to go, we're going to do this first page, and then we're going to go just to here on our first day, okay? We're going to stop at Henry VIII. Henry VIII we get to do on Wednesday. All right, let's get started. Share screen, Prince and the Pauper, share, let's go. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear noises, but Finn is playing with his like rawhide shoes, and he's throwing them in the air and running around after them. So if I giggle or get distracted, or if you hear weird noises, that's Finn again, my dog, playing over there, just so you know. All right, let's go. So we are beginning The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. And that's actually the first thing we're going to be talking about is our author, Mark Twain. So Mark Twain was born in 1835. He passed away in 1910. And he is known as one of the greatest American writers. So I think we talked about this with Robert Frost. Robert Frost, the poet, was like one of the most iconic, most well-known and celebrated American poets. Well, Mark Twain is one of the most celebrated American writers. He is known across the world as an American author. And he lived most of his life. He grew up in Hannibal, Missouri. And he grew up on the banks, or he grew up on the river's edge of the Mississippi River, and he really, really loved riverboats. Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. We need to pause really quick. Sorry about that. Finnegan had a little bit of a disaster. So we'll continue. The last thing we left off on was that Mark Twain had a love of riverboats. He was a huge fan. Growing up on the banks of the Mississippi, he got to see riverboats all the time because that is one of the main ways that things traveled up and down the river at his time. And so it was oftentimes those big paddle boats. He would love those. Okay. Remember, pause me if I go too fast because you have that lovely option, and you should be following along in here if you aren't already. Okay. So this is what I meant when I was talking about the big paddle boats. So his father died when he was 11 years old. And so he actually left school at the age of 11 to become a printer's apprentice. And a printer's apprentice is like somebody who literally would like print things like books and or newspapers. So he left his printing job when he was 21 years old. And he actually worked as a riverboat pilot for several years. And that's what they would call, I guess you would now think of him as like a captain, but he helped steer the ship. And these riverboats and the river became the setting for many of his most famous works. He really loved the Mississippi River and he really loved riverboats. You can actually see in this picture here, this riverboat is named after Mark Twain. But Mark Twain was not his real name. That is what we call a pen name. A pen name is a name that someone chooses to write under. And so it's kind of a way that, like George Eliot. George Eliot is a pen name for a woman who wrote in the 1800s in England. And she didn't believe that, well, she was right, that she might not get as much respect and or readership if they knew that the author was a woman. So she wrote her the name George Eliot. Mark Twain's actual name was Samuel Langhorne Clemens, and he chose his pen name in honor of his time as a steamboat pilot. And the signal to let the pilot know he was in safe water was to mark the twain. And so he went by that name because he had such a love of riverboats. So it's kind of cool. He's got a great mustache, by the way, too. Ooh. His writing style, if you can't see, there's some humor here. He was best known for his use of humor in his stories, and he used a lot of different techniques to make his stories humorous. We've talked about one of these, irony, but he used this third form of irony because there's verbal irony and dramatic irony. Verbal, when you say the opposite of what you mean, and dramatic is where the audience knows something that a character in the play doesn't or a character in the story doesn't. Situational irony is just when something happens that is the opposite of what you would expect to happen. Now, that one's hard because that's all based on a person's expectation. And so people are like, well, is this ironic or is it not? Situational irony can be difficult because, like I said, it's all based on what somebody expects to happen. Therefore, it could be what we call subjective based on the person. But it's when something happens that's the opposite of what you would expect. And then he also was a proponent or a big guy around this idea of satire. Now, satire is the use where you use like humor as well as irony and exaggeration to criticize the flaws in a person or in a group of people. So you elevate somebody's flaws to the point of being ridiculous, and that's satire. Satire is when you make things even more ridiculous to show their initial flaw. And he does that a lot, especially in The Prince and the Pauper. He makes fun of royalty a lot. We're going to learn that this is about a royal family in what we call Tudor England. and he spends a lot of time making fun of how royal and over the top and they are, because that's what he's making fun of, and he does that by exaggerating it even more. On the bottom of your page, you will see there's a hint of his style of humor. The quote that's at the bottom of this page here, that's indicative of how Mark Twain thought and the type of humor he used, which is never argue with stupid people. They will bring you down to their level and then beat you with experience. I think that's actually kind of a smart thing to say, but it also is pretty funny. Don't argue with stupid people. They will bring you down to their level, make you stupid, and then they're going to beat you because they spent their whole time doing that. So I think that's a great quote. The last thing we're going to do today is introduce the tutors. Now, everything up until this point was about the author, Mark Twain, famous American author, loved being funny and using humor and satire and irony. And then this is the first slide about who's in the story, who is this story about. And we actually have a little bit of familiarity with this time period because it's right around the time that Shakespeare was writing in England. So Shakespeare wrote Julius Caesar in the 1500s, and that's actually the setting for our story. Okay, so Mark Twain wrote in the late 1800s in the United States. Our setting of our story is in like the mid 1500s in England. Okay, so we're going to talk about this family called the Tudors, and it is a family who ruled over England from 1485 to about until 1603. And they brought peace to England after a 30-year, what we call the War of the Roses. And this was a very bloody and very violent war for power in England during this time before 1485. There were two families, two warring families. There were the Lancasters and the Yorks, and they each had their own symbol. The Lancasters, their symbol was a red rose, and the Yorks, their symbol was a white rose. And to kind of find a way to stop this war from happening, they married. That actually is a lot. Basically, when wars are happening throughout human history, lots of times the way to prevent those wars are through a marriage alliance. And so they decided to stop doing that, and Henry Tudor, a Lancastrian, red rose, married the niece of a leader of the Yorks. And so they put the red rose and the white rose together as a symbol of unity, meaning the families were now connected. And then the Tudor rose was born. So that's the combination of the red and the white. Joe Isaac, I have to mention you, Joe Isaac gave me a British coin. It's 2 shillings. And on the back of that coin, there is a Tudor rose, which shows the red rose and the white rose. I mean, they're in silver. You can't really see the colors, but it shows those 2 roses put together. It is a very well-known symbol of them putting their enmities aside after the war and combining forces. Okay, so that's all we're going to do today. Tomorrow, we're actually going to learn about some of the people inside the Tudor family. We're going to start with Henry VIII, and some of you might have heard of Henry VIII before. He's quite famous, and he is actually going to be in our story. We'll start reading on Thursday. Okay, I tried to keep it short. I think it was still a little bit long, but you have no homework tonight. Just to watch this video, fill out your sheet, and I'll see you here tomorrow for part 2 of our notes. All right, have a good rest of your day. Bye.